And welcome back to Square Off. So, who would vote against banning taxes? Prop 126 on the November ballot would bar politicians from taxing a vast range of services in our everyday lives. But there is bipartisan opposition to Prop 126. Democrats and normally anti-tax Republicans are coming out against it. So, are new taxes a good thing? Prop 126, known as the Protect Arizona Taxpayers Act, was placed on the ballot by the Arizona Association of Realtors. It would ban any kind of new taxes on services levied by any government entity in the state. Those services could include home repairs, daycare, haircuts, accounting, and real estate. Joining us in support of a yes vote on Prop 126 are Wes Gullett, spokesman for the initiative, and urging a no on the proposition, Andrew Clark, state director for the Conservative Americans for Prosperity. Good to see you both.
Thanks for having us.
Wes Gullett, this initiative is a really big deal in a state that relies on sales taxes to fund a lot of government. So why should citizens want to cut off the possibility of raising taxes from all kinds of
because
services?
We already tax services. We have an income tax, and that when you work and you sweat in your job and you're a laborer, you pay a tax, and it's an income tax. And a service tax is just another tax on top of that. And we think it's double taxation. It's not fair to the small businesses who make the economy go.
Now, realtors sponsored this. They paid to get this on the ballot. Well, what do they have to gain from this?
So 400,000 people signed petitions to put it on the ballot. So it was a large group of people who said that this was
But somebody spent the money to get those petitions in front of them.
And the realtors had consistently been consumer advocates. They've protected consumers in a number of ways. And so they don't want the economy stalled by a service tax. And we keep hearing about service taxes. And now, once we put this on the ballot, all the politicians have come out and they're like, oh my gosh, we got to do this. So it proves that they had a plan to tax services. And we're going to stop that because that's going to help the economy.
Andrew Clark, this is kind of your world upside down. You're normally anti-tax, right?
Always. Yeah.
Okay, so Wes Gullett saying this is a double tax. How do you see it?
So Prop 126 is just a question about whether or not the exemption on service taxes should be taken out of statute and put into the Constitution or not. And the way that we see it is taking service taxes and saying those are exempt in our Constitution so that the legislature can't touch it doesn't make a lot of sense. In an ideal world, we'd love to see a broadening of the base and a lowering of the rates across the board. We're open to all sorts of plans and discussions there, but picking preferential treatment and placing that into the Constitution isn't the right answer for our state.
I think it's really important when you think about broadening the base. Andrew's going to talk about service taxes or services being a big part of the economy. It's because healthcare is growing very fast. And so when they talk about broadening the base, really, and not picking winners and losers, it's really about taxing healthcare. And that would be a huge burden on people.
So a service go a little tax, deeper there. What do you mean by tax? You're saying this is going to hit healthcare harder?
Healthcare is a service. So if we're talking about taxing all services, we're talking about taxing healthcare, and that's a dangerous place to go.
So Wes is just kind of, in his credit, is doing what he's paid to do, right? But he's jumping to a conclusion that's not guaranteed. This proposition is not about whether we're taxing healthcare or not. It's just about whether exemptions should be placed into the Constitution or not. That's all it's about. Whether or not we have a discussion on whether taxes on healthcare make sense or not is totally separate from this proposition.
Okay, so recent poll shows, Arizona Republic Suffolk University poll shows 48% would vote yes. 31% no, 20% undecided. That's a pretty big hill to climb, that yes vote. So what is your best argument to those voters who are happy to see a whole class of services untaxed?
Now, we saw that poll, and look, that's about half of where it was just a month ago, so support for this is dying quickly. And a lot of that is because you get everyone from Governor Ducey to David Garcia in agreement that you should vote no. And you can't get those two guys to agree on the color of the sky right now. But they agree this is a bad idea.
That's a really interesting point. You do have Ducey and Garcia.
Andrew has done a wonderful job of organizing the politicians. So if you look at it, even the committee that they formed has Steve Farley, far left. He couldn't even muster enough to win the Democrat nomination for governor, Senator Steve Farley, and Senator Bob Worsley, a couple of politicians, which kind of proves our point. And when you hear Senator Farley talk about it, he's like, we need this money for revenue for the state. We need the money. We have to have the money. So when you look at that, they've coalesced all the politicians, and that's pretty impressive.
It is the Star Wars bar scene of a coalition, no doubt.
The Star Wars bar scene.
Yes, sir.
This group of Bob Worsley, Steve Farley, Doug Ducey is part of the bar scene?
He's not, but you get David Lujan, you get ourselves, people who just sat and had a serious battle over Invest in Ed and a very robust conversation about taxes. And obviously we're on opposite sides on those things. But on this issue, we're on the same side, which is to say that we ought to have an economy that treats people the same. If I run Bob's Boat Shop and I sell boats, why should I pay 5.5% as a sales tax when Bob's Boat Transportation across the street pays nothing, right? We should have an economy that has a nice low flat rate for everybody and treats every business the same way.
Okay.
Every business.
Including
healthcare.
Oh, including, okay. We'll be back
And
with more, and childcare. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Go into a little more detail on Prop 126 and Arizona's out of whack tax structure. Then how one group is turning young people into voters. Stay with us.